Is Ja Morant this generation's Derrick Rose? So far early on into this season, Ja Morant is in the midst of an absolute breakout season, and a lot of people are raising the question if Ja Morant is potentially the next Derrick Rose. But quickly before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, please consider hitting that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it.
Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetic.
Ever since Ja Morant was drafted a few seasons back by the Memphis Grizzlies, he was playing fantastic basketball right away. He was just one of those players that just came right out of college and played great basketball. He didn't necessarily need a few seasons under his belt to live up to his potential, he did it right away. But in my opinion, something that was even more impressive was the fact that ever since he got drafted to the NBA, he improved his game each and every season, even though coming into the NBA in his rookie season, he was already playing a very high level of NBA basketball. That's something that's very difficult to do, especially for a guy who's only 3 years into his NBA career. Just looking at some of Ja's statistics, in his rookie season, he was averaging around 18 points per game on 47% shooting from the field, 3.9 rebounds, and also adding 7.3 assists to his game. Obviously very good numbers, but in the 2020 season, which was last year, Ja brought his numbers up to 19 points per game on 45% shooting from the field, 4 rebounds per game, and also adding 7.4 assists, which is certainly a pretty decent improvement from his rookie season. But this season, as I mentioned, he completely broke out. And this season, he's averaging 26 points per game on 49% shooting from the field, 6 rebounds, and also adding 6.8 assists. Just an overall fantastic season for Ja Morant this year. And for all the hard work that Ja Morant has put in ever since getting into the NBA, Ja was actually recently awarded with his first ever All-Star appearance in his young NBA career. But now let's get into the question of the video, which is Ja Morant this generation's Derrick Rose? Now, ever since Ja Morant was actually drafted into the NBA, there was already a ton of comparisons between Ja and Derrick Rose, but now especially the season that Ja has been having this year, there's even more comparisons between the two. And it's pretty clear why. When you look at both of these guys' games stylistically, when you talk about a young Derrick Rose compared to Ja Morant right now, their games are very similar. Of course, young D Rose's best ability was driving all the way to the basket and had a crazy amount of athleticism, had the ability to posterize whatever players in the paint, finish around them with crafty layups, had a decent mid-range jump shot, certainly had an ability from that three-point range, but wasn't necessarily all that great from that three-point area. D Rose also had a pretty good passing and playmaking ability, and when you compare and contrast that to Ja Morant right now, a lot of those abilities are very similar. Of course, Ja has the ability to drive all the way to the basket very effectively, has crazy athleticism to posterize whatever players in the paint, finish around them with crafty layups, has a decent mid-range jump shot / floater, certainly has the ability to shoot that three-point shot, but isn't necessarily elite from there. His passing and playmaking ability is very good. His game overall is just very similar to Derrick Rose. So whenever you compare a player now to a player in the past, the first step that you have to get through is look at their game stylistically and see if they match up. And as I mentioned before in the video, I think it's pretty clear that Ja Morant's game matches up very well stylistically to the way D Rose played early on into his career. But now the next step would be to actually determine how good Derrick Rose was early on into his career compared to how good Ja Morant is right now. So first, let's look at some of the statistics that D Rose was putting up. In D Rose's rookie season, he averaged around 17 a game on 47% shooting, 3.9 rebounds, and also adding 6.3 assists to his game. In his second season, D Rose averaged 21 a game on 49% shooting from the field, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists. In the 2010 NBA season, which was his MVP year, D Rose averaged 25 a game on 44% shooting, 4.1 rebounds, and also adding 8 assists to his game as well. And when you just look at their numbers straight up, Ja Morant compared to D Rose's numbers 3 years into their careers, the numbers are very similar. And some people may say, based upon the fact that Ja Morant and D Rose have very similar games stylistically, also considering the fact that D Rose and Ja Morant have very similar statistics 3 years into their NBA careers, some people may say that Ja Morant is certainly this generation's Derrick Rose due to those factors. But I think this is a little deceiving, honestly, just looking at the numbers, because when you consider how the NBA was all the way back in the 2008 NBA season compared to how it is now, I think it's pretty clear that it was a lot more difficult to average 25 a game back then than it is now. NBA offenses have advanced so significantly now, especially compared to where they were back then, just making it a lot easier to score the basketball these days, and I think we've seen that in a lot of the NBA's top players in terms of the points per game they're averaging. And of course, adding to that point, NBA players are certainly getting to the line a lot more now than they were back in the 2008 NBA season. I also do want to mention that the NBA did just put new rules in place to limit the amount of fouls in each game, specifically shooting fouls. But even with that, the amount of times players are getting to the line are certainly way up now compared to what they were back in the 2008 or 2010 NBA season. So in my opinion, the fact that D Rose was averaging 25 a game in his MVP season compared to Ja Morant averaging 26 per game this season, I think D Rose's season was certainly more impressive, by a decent margin honestly. And I don't want to necessarily take anything away from Ja Morant, because I think it's been pretty clear that so far early on into his young career, he's had a fantastic career, only 3 years in of course as well. And the fact that he's putting up these kind of numbers in his third NBA season are certainly very impressive, and even besides the numbers, when you watch Ja out there in the court, you can clearly tell he's a generational type talent, and certainly an all-star this year as I mentioned, but of course he's certainly a superstar type player. If not now, he will be very soon. But I just personally think, looking at numbers specifically, the numbers that Derrick Rose put up were certainly more impressive. But with all that being said, do I think Ja Morant could potentially be this generation's D Rose? Well, I personally think that the standard that D Rose set by being the NBA's youngest MVP was certainly extremely high, and is almost impossible for anybody to live up to those expectations. But with that being said, I think Ja Morant has proven early on into his NBA career that he's a special talent, and certainly the talent that he has out there, I think he has a capability to do something similar to what D Rose did, and potentially be this generation's D Rose. Now, does that mean Ja Morant has to go out there and win an NBA MVP relatively soon, or win an NBA championship for his team relatively soon? I don't necessarily think so, although I will say in terms of the MVP front, this season he's having such a great year that he's honestly in the running to win the MVP, although I don't personally think he will win it, as I said. But honestly, all I want to see from Ja Morant going forward is continue to play the level of basketball that he's playing this season throughout his NBA career, while also obviously continuing to improve certain parts of his game. But I think the next big test for Ja Morant would be, once it comes down to the NBA playoffs, to actually play a very high level of NBA basketball, and also to advance in the NBA playoffs and potentially make it all the way to the second round, third round, or maybe even the NBA finals. We'll see what happens for the Grizzlies and Ja Morant going forward. But I think if Ja Morant could continue to play at the level of NBA basketball that he's playing at now, he certainly has the capability of becoming this generation's Derrick Rose, in my opinion at least. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys think Ja Morant could potentially be this generation's D Rose, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, please check out one of these two videos popping up now. And until the next time, peace out guys.
Dosage. Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetic. Hope you can't go where I'm headed.